There are lots of urban legends in Jerusalem. This one might be the most important. It has to do with the Golden Gate and the fact that it is closed. Why is it closed?
At exactly 9:35 a.m., something happened in Jerusalem that was never supposed to happen until the Messiah returned. A gate sealed for over 5 centuries, stone, mortar, history, and prophecy holding it shut, suddenly opened. No warning, no permission, no explanation. And while the world's media stayed quiet, witnesses stood frozen, realizing they were watching a moment tied to ancient prophecy unfold in real time. If this is your first time here, like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel, because what you are about to hear may completely change how you see the times we are living in. Known as the Eastern Gate, the Golden Gate, or the Gate of Mercy, it faces directly toward the Mount of Olives and overlooks the Kidron Valley. Its location alone places it at the center of biblical geography, but its meaning reaches far beyond stone and position. For more than 5 centuries, this gate has remained completely sealed, blocked by massive stones, reinforced with mortar, and left untouched by generations who understood its significance. This was not an ordinary gate closed for security or preservation. It was sealed with intention. According to both Jewish and Christian tradition, the Eastern Gate holds a unique prophetic role. It is believed to be the gate through which the Messiah would enter Jerusalem. Because of this belief, the gate was not merely shut, it was deliberately locked away from human interference. The message was clear and widely understood across centuries. No human hand was meant to open it. For Jewish tradition, the Eastern Gate represents the future arrival of the Messiah, who would bring restoration, peace, and divine rule. For Christians, it carries the additional weight of history, believed to be the very gate through which Jesus entered Jerusalem during his triumphal entry. Both traditions converge on one idea: this gate belongs to divine timing, not human authority. As a result, it became known as the most prophetically charged gate in Jerusalem, set apart from every other entrance in the city walls. Century after century passed, and the gate remained exactly as it was, unopened, undisturbed, unchanged. Empires rose and fell. Jerusalem changed hands repeatedly. Wars, earthquakes, invasions, and reconstructions reshaped the city. Yet the Eastern Gate stood frozen in time. No ruler dared to reopen it. No engineer attempted to restore it. Its sealed state became a living symbol of waiting for something that had not yet come. Over time, this waiting produced 2 very different responses. Skeptics mocked the prophecy, calling it symbolic, outdated, or impossible. They pointed to the thick stones and centuries of silence as proof that nothing would ever happen. To them, the sealed gate was simply a relic of superstition, a story preserved only by religious tradition. But believers saw something else entirely. They waited. Generation after generation passed down the same expectation. The gate would remain closed until the moment God Himself decided otherwise. Its silence was not failure, it was restraint. Its closure was not abandonment, it was anticipation. The moment the Eastern Gate opened did not unfold slowly, and it did not come with warning. According to multiple eyewitness accounts, it happened suddenly, in the middle of an ordinary morning in Jerusalem. There were no announcements, no ceremonies, no visible preparations. At 9:35 a.m., the silence that had surrounded the gate for centuries was broken in an instant. Those standing nearby described hearing a deep, unfamiliar sound, not sharp like an explosion, and not rolling like a typical earthquake. It was a heavy, resonant noise, as if something ancient had shifted beneath the stone itself. For a brief moment, the ground vibrated. People stopped walking. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Attention turned toward the eastern wall, where nothing was ever supposed to change. Then the stones began to move. Large blocks that had sealed the gate for generations cracked and broke apart, falling away from the entrance. Witnesses noted how quickly it happened. What had remained fixed for over 500 years gave way in a matter of minutes. Dust filled the air. Some people shouted. Others stood frozen, unable to speak. A structure long believed to be immovable was no longer closed. Several tour guides later reported the same unsettling detail. Moments before the event, they had been explaining to visitors that the gate would remain sealed until the Messiah's return. As the words were still fresh in the air, the gate began to open. For many in the crowd, the timing alone was enough to cause panic, awe, or disbelief. Reactions varied, but the intensity was consistent. Some witnesses began to cry. Others fell to their knees. A few pulled out their phones, struggling to document what they themselves could barely comprehend. Longtime residents of Jerusalem, people who had walked past the gate for decades without ever seeing change, described the experience as deeply disorienting. One moment, the gate was history. The next, it was happening. What made the scene even more disturbing was the absence of obvious causes. There was no visible construction nearby, no heavy machinery, no officials clearing the area beforehand. Security footage later showed no one approaching the gate prior to the event. For many observers, the lack of human involvement was just as striking as the opening itself. As the dust settled, a clear opening stood where solid stone had been moments earlier. People stared at it in silence. Some whispered prayers. Others asked the same question repeatedly. How could this happen? A gate sealed by design, protected by history, and tied to ancient prophecy had changed without explanation. And yet, what witnesses saw that morning was only the surface of the event. The deeper questions about how it happened, why it happened, and what it might signal were only beginning to emerge. Stay with us, because the details surrounding how the gate opened raise even more troubling questions, and what comes next may be even more significant than the moment itself. To understand why the opening of the Eastern Gate carries such weight, it is necessary to look back at why it was sealed in the first place. This was not an act of neglect or decay. It was a deliberate decision made with full awareness of prophecy and fear of its fulfillment. In the 16th century, when Jerusalem was under Ottoman rule, Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent ordered the Eastern Gate to be permanently sealed. Massive stones were placed tightly across the entrance, reinforced with thick mortar, ensuring that the gate could not be reopened easily or at all. This was not a standard defensive measure. Other gates in Jerusalem remained functional. This one was treated differently. Historical records and religious traditions agree on the motive. Suleiman was aware of the Jewish belief that the Messiah would enter Jerusalem through the Eastern Gate. By sealing it, he believed he could prevent that prophecy from ever being fulfilled. To strengthen this effort, a Muslim cemetery was constructed directly in front of the gate, based on the understanding that a priestly Messiah would not pass through a burial ground. In effect, human authority attempted to interrupt divine expectation. What followed is one of the most striking ironies in religious history. The gate remained exactly as described in Scripture, closed, untouched, and waiting. The words of Ezekiel 44:2 echoed across centuries. "This gate shall be shut, it shall not be opened, and no man shall enter by it." The seal itself became proof that the prophecy was still being taken seriously. Century after century passed. Different empires ruled Jerusalem. Political power shifted repeatedly. Earthquakes shook the region. Wars damaged city walls. Yet, the Eastern Gate remained sealed through every upheaval. During the Six-Day War in 1967, even Israeli authorities reportedly refrained from unsealing it, warned by religious leaders that only the Messiah should open that gate. For skeptics, the sealed gate became evidence that prophecy had failed. They argued that a gate, blocked by stone, could never serve its intended purpose. Over time, the belief spread that the prophecy must be symbolic, not literal. How could someone enter through a gate that no longer functioned? But Scripture repeatedly emphasizes that human barriers do not limit divine action. Isaiah 45:2 declares, "I will break in pieces the gates of bronze and cut the bars of iron." The message is clear. What humanity seals, God can open. What appears permanent to man is temporary to divine authority. The sealed Eastern Gate stood for over 500 years as a monument to human control, an attempt to lock prophecy into silence. Yet in doing so, it also stood as a reminder that history does not move independently of God's timing. The longer the gate remained closed, the greater its significance grew. By sealing the gate, human rulers believed they were preventing fulfillment. In reality, they were setting the stage. The longer it stayed shut, the clearer the message became. When this gate finally opened, it would not be by accident, erosion, or permission, but by a moment no human power could stop. The Eastern Gate is not important because of its age or its architecture. Its weight comes from what Scripture says about it, and how consistently those words have been preserved across time. Long before the gate was sealed by human hands, it was already defined by prophecy. The clearest passage comes from Ezekiel 44:1-3, where the prophet describes a gate facing east that would remain shut because the Lord, the God of Israel, had entered through it. The text emphasizes that no man would open it and that it was reserved for the prince. For centuries, Jewish scholars understood this as a direct reference to the Messiah. The gate was not closed because it was forgotten, it was closed because it was set apart. This belief shaped how the gate was treated in history. Unlike other entrances to Jerusalem, it was never repurposed. No ruler turned it into a market passage. No army forced it open for strategy. The prophecy placed a boundary around it that even powerful leaders hesitated to cross. Whether they believed the prophecy or feared it, the result was the same. The gate stayed sealed. For Christians, the prophecy carries an additional layer. The Eastern Gate is traditionally identified as the gate through which Jesus entered Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, fulfilling Zechariah's words, "See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey." Zechariah 9:9. That moment was seen as a partial fulfillment, humble, quiet, and temporary. But Scripture also points forward to a return that will not be quiet. Zechariah 14:4 speaks of the day when the Lord's feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, directly east of Jerusalem. The geography matters. The Mount of Olives faces only one gate, the Eastern Gate.